Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. Not sure when you're going to be watching this, but welcome to the pre-retirement seminar. I'm John Gordon. I'm the Director of Sales for Chicago Patrolmen's Federal Credit Union. Hopefully you're all members of the credit union. As you know, we are a full-service financial institution. We've been serving the needs of Chicago police officers and their families for the last 82 years. And as a full-service financial institution, it is our goal to help you realize your financial goals. And a part of that, I know you've worked very hard to get to retirement. So with me today is our financial planning group, our partners, MAF companies. They are specialists in the field. Combined, I believe they have over 100 years experience. They specialize in your pensions. They specialize in your health care. They're certainly going to help you get over the finish line and help you enjoy that retirement that you so very much deserve. So I'm not going to talk too much longer. I'm going to hand it off to Mike Marin and Eric Cassiopo from MAF Companies.
Thanks, John. My name's Mike Marin. With me today is Eric Cassiopo, and we're with MAF Companies, and we staff and partner with the credit union to staff the Financial Planning and Education Center. And we're here today to talk about one of the ultimate goals, retirement, and what we can do to get steps to take before you decide to retire is to get yourself set up to make sure that you retire in a sound financial situation. And because keep in mind, retirement is once. There's no mulligans, there's no do-overs. So our goal is to help you retire right, and that's why the Financial Planning Center is available to you to sit down and discuss your ultimate goal, which is retirement. Quite frankly, the retirement equation has changed over our generation. Things that we used to plan for 30 years ago have changed quite a bit. For most of you, you're going to be retired longer than you worked for the city of Chicago. So we need to think about that. We need to plan for that length of time to make sure that we have a secure financial retirement. And we want to encourage you as you go through this presentation, take some notes. If you have any questions, please contact us. We'll be happy to get some answers for you if we can. So think about the last 30 years when you started. Over the last 30 years of changes, I started in 1990 with PepsiCo Nationwide. A lot of you today in the presentations first saw me at the academy, and if you started 20 or 30 years ago, we talked about deferred compensation in the beginning once you were a recruit, and now we're going to talk about the planning for the ultimate goal of retirement from the city of Chicago. But just think of a few things that have changed over the last 30 years, and this is why I say it's important. It's always fluid, things are always changing, but when we started back in the 90s, deferred comp, the maximum was $7,500. Today in 2020, it's $19,500. The job has changed from when you first started. Over the years, it has evolved in terms of what they expect in your occupation. But the main thing is I want to thank you for the years of service to the city of Chicago, for all the years you've put in and worked with the Chicago Police Department. We appreciate the service. The silent majority supports you. We support the blue, and that's why we want to talk to you today to try to encourage you to sit down with us, make an appointment. Let's review your individual situation and help you retire right. Like I said before, things have changed over time, but the main thing that hasn't changed is the mission of Chicago Patrolmen's Credit Union. The main thing is that the credit union looks at what your members' needs are, financial solutions and financial education, and in 2002 created the Financial Planning and Education Center, which is what I joined back when we started the Financial Planning and Education Center. So I appreciate the fact that you're in attendance today for this important seminar. You're going to hear a lot of different parts of the retirement equation. We are basically your general contractors because of our experience with this, working with Chicago Police Department members and their families. We know your pension, we know your medical, we know all the different benefits for the city of Chicago and how to coordinate that, and all the tax laws for your deferred compensation plan. All right, today's topics on the seminar, really, first point, should you retire? Things to do before you go, and schedule a financial checkup. So just because you can leave should you. Many of you have made up your mind to go. We're getting a lot of calls. A lot of people are retiring in the next year here that can. But a review of the issues you're about to face would be helpful. So that's what we're going to go through on some of the topics today and some of the slides. But the best thing to do is to get them right before you go, because once you're gone, we can't really go back and do it over and correct things. So it's always good if you're 1 to 3 years out. I usually ask show of hands of how many are retiring in the next 1 to 3 years, and usually we get half the members participating in the seminar are going to go very soon. We encourage you to sit down and start planning that day and getting that process put in place to make sure that we retire the right way. We also encourage you at no cost or obligation to get a financial checkup with one of the team members at the Financial Planning Education Center. There's 6 of us. We'd be happy to sit down with you, review things, give you some ideas, answer some questions. So we encourage you to contact us. Once you decide on a retirement date, it's always good to, a year or 2 out, to come in and sit down and talk to us and look at some of the things we need to do for planning over those last years that you have before you go. So we're in it for the long haul. The main thing is maintaining your lifestyle during retirement, and it doesn't happen by accident. It happens on purpose by planning. So let's flip to the next slide. Should you leave? What are the financial considerations? Well, mainly, what's your income going to be in retirement? So the most important thing to do, first off, is to make that call to the pension fund. If you have a date in mind, have them send you the estimate of what your gross monthly pension amount's going to be for that date in the future based upon your years of service. So we want to look at that comparison of what that number is going to be down the road and compare it to how does that work for your net pay today, and how does that provide for your lifestyle that you enjoy today. So when we call the pension fund, they'll send you out that letter based upon the date you give them, and it's an estimate, and they'll give you an estimate of the actual gross income that you'll get on a monthly basis for your pension check. Keep in mind, because most people ask, Mike, can I retire at 75% of pay? How am I going to survive? How am I going to pay my bills? Well, for most of you, keep in mind that currently on your current paycheck, you have deductions that aren't going to be there when you retire. So if you look at the biggest deductions right now in your paycheck, coming off the top is your pension contribution of 9%. That stops. Illinois state tax is roughly 5% today in 2020. That is not taxable. Your pension check is not taxable. Current law does not tax your pension, deferred comp, or IRA distributions in the future. You just pay federal tax. Deferred comp, a lot of you have been saving a large amount of money towards the end, so you may be saving over 10% of your paycheck into deferred compensation on a pre-tax basis. And then you have a medical insurance deduction, which may be the same or a little bit lower in retirement out of your pension check. So when you actually add up the percentage of what's going out of your check that while you're active, most of you are in the 70 to 80% take-home pay right now with all those deductions. The only deduction you're going to see once you retire is the federal income tax deduction, along with some of you are going to pay a small percentage for your medical insurance for your family if you retire under the 55 or 60 provision. So what else aren't we going to have to enjoy? Time due buybacks. We're not going to be accumulating any time due. You're going to have that check. If you have the hours on the books, that income will start coming to you once you retire. Based upon how you retire, you may get that in a lump sum, or you may get that spread over 3 or 4 years, depending on how you take that and what provision you retire under. Now, if you're single, you're going to get a lump sum from the pension fund for all those premiums you paid for being a joint survivor pension. So you will get a no-spouse refund from the pension fund. We encourage you to talk to us to roll that money over and put that in a tax-deferred account so you don't pay any current income taxes on the year you retire. Your side job, you may have a non-police side job that may or may not change once you become a retired civilian instead of sworn officer. If you're thinking about a second career, that's another income source from that goal that you have to maybe start another career someplace else. in addition to collecting your pension from the city of Chicago. More important today, that's really been a change in the last 5 years, is spousal income from your spouse's, his or her job, and more importantly, the group benefits. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, because the group benefits, especially the health care, is probably the biggest factor we have today in terms of financial planning for retirement. So whether you're going off on the 55 or 60 provision or going before, there's a lot of different variables, and we'll talk about some of those in the next few slides. Should you leave? Well, let's look at some financial considerations about the timing. What is your date that you're going to choose to go, and what are some of the things that you may want to incorporate into that decision? Well, your anniversary date. Keep in mind, over the years, you may have attended a wedding in California or something, may have taken a few days off that don't count towards your time. You may have been out a few days, so you want to really call the pension fund and ask your total number of years of service and what's your true anniversary date. The day you started may be a week off from actually when you qualify for your years of service. You do not want to miss an anniversary by a couple of days and lose 2.5% of your pension income for the rest of your life. So it's critical you call the pension fund, check your anniversary date, put some cushion on that, and then get that projection also from them at the same time. If you've having any other careers with other municipalities like the county, you have reciprocity towards the city pension, and also if you had any military time, you can buy some of those years back through the pension fund. And with the new laws, you can now use your 457 deferred comp plan to pay those dollars pre-tax. It'll be transferred right to the pension fund and buy those years for you to give you that extra income for the rest of your life. When's your next step raise, COLA raise? Keep in mind your time due payouts are based upon what your salary level is at the time you retire. So if you're close to one of those, that's going to have an impact if you have a lot of hours on the books as to what that value is going to be for that pool of money you get for the time due dollars as they pay those out to you. Quite a few people ask me, Mike, should I retire in November or should I go in January? Well, if you go in November, before November 15th, you're gonna retire in that year. You'll get your check in December, and then you'll get your first 3% simple raise, COLA raise, January 1st, so about a month and a half after you go. If you wait, which most people do, if you wait into January, the first payroll in January, what's the advantage? Well, you get a whole nother set of FSLA days, all your extra days that you get for vacation and everything, added to your time due check, and you get almost a month and a half worth of pay by working in terms of the comp time and everything like that, in terms of the time due, if you work into the following calendar year pay period. The other advantage of that is the fact that if you start in January and work one pay period into January, you get the opportunity to participate in deferred compensation for the maximum for that year, for whatever the maximum, which this year is $19,500 or $26,000 for a lot of people that are over age 50. Those time due hours that you get, that first check you get from the city as you walk out the door, you can still max out your deferred compensation plan by just working one pay period into the following January. So how you want to go, it's some of the things to consider. And really think about it, there's a lot of tax advantages to doing that, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. All right, should you leave, let's look at the cost of leaving. Well, like I said before, you're not getting any more overtime, you're not booking any more time due. Pay raises, are you close to a pay raise? Like I said before, that may help, with the equation for your time due hours, so you may want to look at that date that the pay raises are going to be effective. Potential for promotion, well, your pension's factored on the highest 4 years of your last 10, so if you're going for a promotion, keep in mind that effect on the pension fund is going to be the most pronounced if you stay 4 years after a promotion. So it's something that, if looking at the numbers, what you're doing for the position for promotion, and if that comes up, then you might want to look at staying for a few more years to help have that impact on your pension for the rest of your life. Police side jobs, it's a question of whether or not you're going to continue to work the side jobs as a civilian versus a sworn officer. Might be some security jobs and things like that on the side. So keep in mind what you have is currently side jobs, whether or not that's going to still be available to you once you retire. The city term insurance, we all get $75,000 free from the city as a general benefit. A lot of you have 1, 2, or 3, or 4 times your salary of term insurance. You have some other insurance options there. Keep in mind the insurance options that you have are portable, and the city term insurance is convertible, and that if you do that within 30 days of leaving the city's employment. If you need the city term insurance, we encourage you to talk to us because we have better options for most people that are more flexible and less cost. Just give MAF a call and we'll be happy to provide you some of the information. Okay, slide before you go. Let's look at things. You've been working hard on your career all these years. It's encouraged you to go and get things checked out with your medical side of the equation. We're talking a lot about the financial side, but we want to make sure that we live long, healthy retirement. So while we're still on the city benefits, let's make sure you schedule an appointment for a follow-up and a checkup, check under the hood, and just make sure that we don't have any tests or elective surgery, things like that we need to have done before we go, because you still have your medical benefits and everything while you're working. When you're retired, you still have the same options to go see the doctor, but it may be a benefit to you to get things wrapped up before you hit that retirement date. As you move into retirement, one of the things to keep in mind is that the process of getting your first check can take six weeks to 2 months. So once you walk out the door, you want to plan for 2 months without any income sources coming in. So you can look at the check when the pension check starts up. It will retro back to your retirement date, but you're going to have a period there where there's a gap of income. And if you want to prepare for that in terms of saving, or you also have an option now with the loan provision from deferred comp. Because deferred comp payouts are not going to happen either. Distributions won't happen until the time due check is paid to you, and then the pension check starts, and then deferred comp gets word that you're no longer an employee. Then they can let any funds out of deferred comp that you may wish to withdraw. But in the meantime, while you're active or retired, you can use the new loan provision. I started working on this 10 years ago with the FOP after the last Great Recession. And if you remember back in the old days, deferred comp was pretty restrictive, not flexible, and unforeseeable emergency was the only way you could get your money out. So finally, 5 years ago, we were able to get that loan provision implemented. So now, as an active or retiree, you can borrow from your deferred comp plan for short-term emergencies, paying for a house down payment, education expenses for the kids, or any other thing we need to do for distribution strategies when you're in retirement to control your taxes. So that's a fairly new feature, and we want to encourage you to remember that that's available when you are a retiree also. So you can help pay off some of that debt you may have before you go and put yourself in a good cash flow position. And so we encourage you to look at your overall expenditures for your home budget, expenses, things like that you may want to take care of before you officially retire. Big thing though, before you make the decision to retire, is are you utilizing your tax benefits through deferred compensation? So can you maximize your deferred compensation to save on your state and federal taxes while you're working? The maximum this year is $19,500, $26,000 for anybody over age 50, and $39,000 if you're doing the old 3-year double up catch up. So the big question when you do go is please get the forms necessary as you retire to make sure you max out any time due dollars that you have by putting those into deferred compensation. Even if you want to take them out 2 months later, the reason is as you save in deferred compensation, you save on 2 taxes, state and federal. When you take the money out of deferred compensation after you retire, that money, any distributions, currently are free of the 5% state of Illinois income tax. You just pay federal taxes on those distributions. Keep in mind too, deferred comp's a different program from all the other things you'll see from all the other advisors. That's why we encourage you to come talk to us. The 457 plan is unique to public sector employees. There is no 59.5 rule. There's a rollover provision now that didn't exist in the old days. So you can roll money out of deferred compensation into an IRA or another qualified plan. But I want to encourage you, never ever close the account. Always leave some amount of money in deferred compensation, because you will have the ability in the future, if you want to move that money back, because there are tax advantages on your deferred compensation plan for public safety officers that don't exist in the 401k world. So we're in a 401k world. The 457 plans which you're in, those have specific rules and regulations that are an advantage to you that you lose if you close that account. So always keeping something in deferred compensation nationwide account, and then you can always come back later as long as your account's open. Your 50 plus catch-up is something new. So anybody who's age 50 can do the catch-up provision, 6,500, and that is a new addition to the deferred comp rules and regulations. The double up has been there since the beginning. It's unique just to the 457 plan, so you can double up for 3 years, 3 consecutive years. And a lot of people use that for the last year as they walk out the door to bank as much as they can out of the time due lump sum check that they get. Spousal refund, we mentioned that before. If you're single, you're going to get a refund from the pension fund. They're going to ask you to fill out that form. You can roll that money back into deferred compensation to keep it non-taxable until the future. Also, review your fund allocation. Where are you allocated? And forget about the old myth that everybody needs to go into the fixed account once they retire. As I said before, a lot of you are going to be retired longer than you worked. So going all fixed, especially today, is not always the best long-term solution for you. So look at that allocation. Keep in mind 30 years ago, my wife started with Nationwide PepsiCo in 1982. The fixed account was paying 15% back in 1982. Today it's paying 2.67. So over the 30 years, interest rates have fallen dramatically. And so that's why planning is so important for the different cycles in the interest rates and also in the other investment alternatives. So always check that. Try to check that once a year before you go. So before you go, for a lot of you, it's, our goal is create a plan. But where is your plan? Have you sat down and put together a plan as to what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and how much you expect to have coming in for the family? So most of us have done it in our head or the back of the envelope, but what I encourage you to consult with us and sit down one-on-one, no cost or obligation, at the credit union locations around the city, and look at your specific situation, because everybody's different. There's no cookie cutter solution for retirement. Everybody's got different goals and objectives, and so that's why it's a customized approach to give you solutions that fit you and your family's goals and needs. So before you go, really look at your portfolio. Estimate the value of what you have, what you've saved, what you've accumulated over the years. But the most important part is the top line, your pension and medical benefits. Your pension, most of the defined benefit pensions like you have don't exist anymore in the regular private sector. So that pension provides for most of my clients the majority of the income they need in retirement. I have very few people taking money out of the investments or deferred comp until they're forced to, because the pension is so much of a foundation for their needs, for their cash flow, and for their lifestyle. So you want to make sure you get that estimate. We can work backwards and show you how your net take-home pay today is going to be very similar for most of you compared to the retirement income that you're going to get in the future from the pension. The medical benefits, probably the biggest change over the last 5 years for retirement planning has been where am I going to maintain health insurance from? So that's why it's so critical, if you're going to be eligible for the 55 or 60 provision, that you get there, because that takes that off the table until age 65. because the medical planning, medical insurance planning has become a real struggle over the last 5 to 10 years. So we want you to consider that, and that's probably the first thing we're going to talk about after we get your pension estimate as to whether you qualify for the 55 or 60 provision in the subsidized health care from the city. Social Security, you know, most of you, if you put the hours in, you're going to get a Social Security check. It's going to be reduced somewhat because you're getting a public sector pension, but we'll talk, that's something we talk about later down the road when you're 65 to 67. But those Social Security payments are going to get offset because of the public pension, and also your spousal benefits. Their benefits will not get affected by the pension or their receipt of the pension, because keep in mind the pension itself, if you pass away, only 50% of that income goes to your spouse. Their Social Security benefits are not affected by that pension check. Yours are. 457 in deferred comp, look at everything. You might have a 401k at a previous job. Your spouse may have a 403b, a CPS. We look at everything. We look at the whole picture. When I was at Nationwide, all I talked about before was just deferred compensation. Moving to the credit union allowed us to expand through the Financial Planning and Education Center to talk about your whole picture, not just one piece of it, and we tie everything together with all your pension benefits, medical benefits, and deferred compensation accounts. Do you have any traditional or Roth IRAs that you've accumulated over the years? You might have some annuities that you inherited or bought. You have your stocks, bonds, mutual funds on the outside of deferred comp. You have cash, savings, things like that in your bank or credit union. And your life insurance. It's a good time to review that, your life insurance needs, and also the life insurance type of policy that you have, because there's been a lot of changes over the last few years in terms of the different things that life insurance can do now. And what existed 10 or 20 years ago has changed dramatically in terms of the style and the type of things that the life insurance can do now. Real estate, you may own, you own your home, and you may have other property in Illinois or other states. So we look at that and say, okay, what's your value of your properties, and that's really part of your portfolio. What your overall look is in terms of all your assets. And then spousal assets, he or she might have a 401k or 403b and other benefits. Like I said before, what group benefits do they have? Especially if you're planning on retiring before 55. If you're planning on going out at 50, we have to talk and make sure you have spousal benefits, group benefits for you and your family that are going to be able to provide that medical insurance for you. Is probably the biggest thing that we need to discuss, or if you're going to go work at a job that provides other benefits. But let's consider how much is enough. Well, a lot of people ask me all the time, Mike, how much should I have in my deferred compensation plan so I could retire? Well, keep in mind that that is a variable question based upon, am I single? Do I have a family? How much have I saved? How long have I worked for the city? Because keep in mind, most of you are millionaires. You may ask how? Well, think about your pension monthly check. If you're getting $6,000 or $7,000 a month pension, think about what that income is over the next 20 years. It's between $1 million and $2 million with no growth, no interest. So the pension fund provides an income that's equivalent to having like $1.5 million sitting in the bank, throwing off that income every month that you can't run out of. So when we say how much is enough, we look at what does the pension provide first, and then we also look at your lifestyle changes, because once you retire, you may be doing a lot of traveling early on when you're young and healthy, and then things may subside down the road, 15, 20 years down the road. We look at life expectancy for police officers and things like that, and factor in what the raises are that you're going to get on your pension, which currently is 3% simple. You're going to get the same raise every year versus inflation. Right now, thank God, inflation's low, but 20 years ago, that was a different story. So we factor in a lot of different things, and as you save, you already know what it takes to run your house, but how much do you really need? It's likely very different than what you want or desire. So, as your income change, also your income needs will change unexpectedly over time because life happens. Health, family structure, kids come home again, unforeseeable emergencies. You need a plan with sufficient structure to provide dependable income and still maintain sufficient flexibility to accommodate both planned and unplanned changes. Now you're leaving the accumulation phase, managing retirement. We've been saving all these years for this date. We're here, you're finally officially on fixed income from the pension fund. You have one overwhelming goal: never run out of money. So you will always have your pension income coming in, and we can create other strategies to give you a supplemental lifetime income, but the goal is to never, ever run out of money for your retirement lifestyle. So one of those main factors in the future is managing your money in retirement is effective distribution strategies from your different pots, different buckets of money that you've saved over the years, whether it's regular savings accounts or whether it's taxable IRAs or deferred compensation. Anybody can take money out of savings during retirement and not really affect their overall federal tax liability. But you need to plan distributions for reliable supplemental income for the planned changes in retirement, and you need to plan for unplanned changes. We spoke earlier about how your income needs will also change unexpectedly over time. Due to the pension fund replacing most of your retirement income needs, like I mentioned before, I have very few clients who need to draw from their tax-deferred accounts. Most of you will leave it grow tax-deferred, and now with the new law this year has changed the required minimum distribution start date to age 72. So never be in a position where you need to liquidate assets in a down market in order to get the income you need to live now. Also, tax rates may change in the future, and so a lot of planning goes into what can we do between the retirement date and that required minimum distribution date to put you in a better position that you pay less taxes down the road. Probably the biggest element, new element in retirement planning is this new risk. And the risk is the healthcare costs that a lot of people don't anticipate when they walk out the door and enjoy retirement. But this is a study that was done, and it shows a couple at age 65 going on Medicare and Social Security, but basically going on Medicare for their health insurance at 65. Keep in mind, if you go off and retire on the city's insurance under 55 or 60 provision, that insurance only lasts till you're 65. Once you turn 65, you're going to be joining Medicare, and you're off the city's insurance. Now that has ripple effects for anybody, any spouses or kids that are still younger, because at 60, when you turn 65, we're going to have to look for insurance alternatives for your rest of your family if your spouse is younger and you have younger kids. So keep that in mind. But once we hit 65, this just shows out-of-pocket expenses over a lifetime of a couple, and it's eye-opening. It's $275,000 between all the premiums, out-of-pocket costs for drugs, things like that, what you got to pay for the supplements in Part B and D premiums, and cost sharing. So a couple, and that's where it goes back to Mike, how much do I need in my deferred comp? It's all a variable, and this is just saying for most of the people I've talked to, keep in mind your deferred comp has become a healthcare savings account. Because for most of you, the healthcare money that you've saved up is going to be targeted toward these costs in the future in retirement that we want to have a safety net for if something comes up that we need to draw some dollars down to pay some of these expenses. The biggest change, though, and the biggest thing on this screen that I want you to focus on is that gold box. That gold box shows what's not included in that $275,000 for a couple. And the biggest part of that is the long-term care expenses. So if we look at it right now in today's today's pricing in 2020, if you ever need, you or spouse ever needs some help with assisted living facility, things like that, memory care, just assisted living today costs roughly $5,000 a month. And if you're in there for the 5 years, that's close to $300,000. So if you look at this $275,000 number, it's double if you ever need any help with long-term care expenses. So we encourage you to think about that as part of your retirement for yourself and especially for your spouse. Because why? The spouse is only going to have 50% income. So your income is going to come to you from the pension fund, rain or shine, if you're at home or in a assisted living home. So it's a really eye-opener in terms of the expenses. But first, let's look at making the decision to go off for retirement. If you're not going to go under the 55 or 60 provision, let's look and see what the eye-opening costs are for City of Chicago's health insurance if you've got to pay that yourself because you retired at 53. So what I'm showing here is just the progression over the last 3 years, what the costs have increased from $1,514 in 2018 to today, $2,829 for the PPO plan for the City of Chicago. So if you retire today and you need to keep the insurance from the City of Chicago, you have two plans. This is the best one, the PPO, and then there's a choice plan. But if you go under the 55 or 60 provision, you stay under the city's active plan just like you are today. You continue to have open enrollments in the fall, and you continue to pay your percentage based upon your collective bargaining contract. If you're going early, I want you to look at the right-hand side, the City of Chicago FOP COBRA rates for most of you. That rate, in the old days, we used to laugh that COBRA used to be expensive. Now it's the most economical option that you can maintain for 18 months if you leave early. If you don't have any other group benefits through your spouse or another job that offers you health insurance, you can keep the City of Chicago plan for 18 months under COBRA, and then when the 18th month runs out, you'd switch over to the higher cost number if you wanted to stay on the plan. But please notify the city if you're going early that you want to exercise that COBRA right for you. Also, if you choose COBRA, it lasts 18 months. There's also individual health insurance options that we offer through MAF for people on the outside through the health exchange. So if you need that for yourself or your family when you turn 65, just give us a call. We also run a group retiree health plan through the pension fund, sponsored by the Sergeants Association. So when you turn 65, we offer the only true traditional group Medicare supplement plan to all the City of Chicago police retirees, and that's through the pension fund. So we know how to solve the solution, know how to solve for the health care problem. We have the solutions for that, and just give us a call and we'll help direct you because we have information on all the plans that are available through the City of Chicago for your alternatives. Other big thing too over the years, like improvements in deferred compensation, one of the other options that it was added in '96 to the tax law was that you can use up to $3,000 a year from your deferred comp plan to pay for eligible medical premiums. Now the check has to be cut from Nationwide, but why would I do this? Well, you may have some medical, dental, or vision costs because you left early. You have you may want to have a purchase of qualified long-term care coverage for yourself or your family or your parents. When you use those dollars from deferred comp, that makes you eligible as a public safety officer who's retired. You can move $3,000 out and pay those premiums. Best news on that is it's tax-free. You don't pay tax on those distributions if we're using them for qualified health insurance premiums. So I think that's you can use that now. Once you're retired, whether or not you're on the city's insurance, but especially most people are using this through the pension fund or through deferred comp once they hit Medicare age. So, but if you have any questions on that, please give us a call and we'll give you the rules and regulations on that. Now I'm going to have Eric come up and talk to you for the last part of this seminar, but I encourage you to, any of the questions that you have, give us a call, contact us at the Financial Planning Center at the Chicago Patrolmen Credit Union, and I thank you for the time today that you have spent joining us on this first virtual presentation. 30 years ago, I used to present these at the South Shore Country Club, and today, like today at 80 degrees, I'd love watching all the golfers. But now we're socially distancing. So Eric Cassiope is going to come up and talk about some of the other topics of concerns. Thanks.
So thanks, Mike. Thanks, John. Thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate your time. I'm going to go over a couple of risks in retirement, and then I'm going to go ahead and close out the session. But we want to remind you that we're here for you and to help you. So one of the risks we're going to go over is, what if I die? What happens to my family? God forbid, if something bad happens along the way. We do have COBRA. That's something that's available as one of the options. You want to make sure that your spouse or your beneficiary knows about your deferred compensation and other investments that you may own. You want to update your beneficiary designations. Those are very important. Things like the beneficiaries for your pension or your life insurance policy or your deferred comp 457 plan. Life insurance. Do you have enough for your family? If something was to happen to you, did you know that your pension then gets reduced to 50%? And how would they pay for health care? So we have something called the Spousal Protection or Pension Max Plan. It's something that may be something that would be advantageous to take a look at to see how it would fit for you. So do you have enough insurance if your family, for your family, if you were to pass away and your pension is reduced by 50%? Well, whatever happens to that money anyways? Where does that 50% even go? I was getting X amount of dollars. I passed away. My spouse is now getting half that amount. What happens to the other half? It goes back to the pension fund. And because it does, there's a lot of expenses that need to be accounted for in the future that you have to be aware of. So how will your family pay for some of those expenses in retirement? Because if something happened to me yesterday and I'm no longer here, how would my family pay for things like car expenses? How would they pay for things like food or education? How would they pay for things like home, property taxes? What about things like vacations? We want to make sure that those things are looked at and to make sure that there's enough there to be able to pay those things if, God forbid, something bad happened yesterday. So with pension maximization, what we're doing is we're looking at, on the left-hand side of the screen, you're looking at what would happen for a normal retiree getting around $7,000 per month. Happy couple living the rest of their lives, long and happy life to everybody. With Medicare premium starting at age 65, well, they would continue with that $7,000 a month. On the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to see that that $7,000 a month then gets reduced for the surviving spouse. So that gets reduced to $3,500 a month. And if I go back to page 14, where Mike was making reference of the Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO plan, those premiums were $28.29 a month. That would get deducted from that $3,500, then leaving the surviving spouse with only $671 a month. That's a remarkable number. It's something to make sure that you have enough to make sure you're taking care of your family if you're not here to provide for them any longer. So then we have something called extended care. Extended care is something like what we call longevity risk. The longer you're here, the longer something bad can happen to you along the way. So in longevity, it's one of the biggest risks we have to prepare for. So something happens to us if we die too soon. Something happens to us if we get sick along the way. And something happens to us if we live too long. Well, if we get sick along the way, what if I get sick along the way? What would happen if I needed extended care? What would happen if my spouse needs it? What would happen if my parents need it? Basically, what bucket would you go to first if you had to pay for those expenses? Mike was using the idea of perhaps that expense being in Illinois around $5,000 a month. Well, if it was, what bucket would you start using first? And wouldn't that really be something to watch to make sure that you're well prepared for that if something was to happen in the future? So something that we have for what we call a contingency plan or an unforeseen expense, something you should have is in your, I'm going to call it a tool in your tool shed, is something to be prepared for something like that. Nowadays they do things like hybrids, almost like a gas and electric car. We have something that can do more than one thing protect you in case of an unforeseen expense, but also take care of you for the rest of your life if something bad was to happen to you prematurely. So I would like to be able to go through some of those options with you. Please give us a call when you're ready. We would like to be able to talk to you about those. So in review, we would like you to estimate your retirement income needs and confirm your monthly estimate with the pension board. We would like you to update your beneficiary designations. We'd like you to work with us to help develop your strategy and review your plan on a regular basis. But we need you to take action to protect your future income and retiree health care expenses in the future. They're very important. They shouldn't be overlooked. You only do retire once. We want to make sure that you're well prepared for that. So there's a team of us advisors here at the Financial Planning and Education Center. From left to right in the back row first, we have Russ Caforio, we have Mike Marin, John Ruggiero. In the front row, we have myself, we have Tom Kobolinski, and Mike Krasinski. Our team has over 100 years combined experience in all of those levels below that you see. But something that we also are very familiar with are the things that are coming up and changing in our world. Something called the Secure Act that Mike mentioned earlier that changes things like RMDs. Something called the CARES Act that started when COVID started. And things to think about when you're in retirement is something like a paycheck. It's something that you're no longer going to have. You're going to have to create a paycheck because every day is basically going to become a Saturday. In retirement, we're going to help you create a paycheck as opposed to a paycheck, so this way you're fully prepared for retirement. So we're able to meet with you at any of the 4 branches of the credit union, and in addition to that, we have went ahead and supplied a PDF that's going to be on this page, wherever it's going to be, and it's going to have a link there to be able to have an intake form back for us, just in case you wanted to get in touch with us. You can email us, you can call us, you could drop off this form at one of the branches. It's going to ask for things like your name, which branch is the most convenient for you to visit at, and which topics of interest were more important to you. So we look forward to helping you. We look forward to assisting you in retirement. We also went ahead and added another PDF to this page, so this way you have some resources to reach out to in case you were looking for well-used numbers when you're getting ready to retire. Things like the FOP, or the deferred comp, or pension, or your benefits department. Or somewhere, if you needed to reach us or anybody at the credit union, those numbers are readily available here. So in closing, we're here and we're proud to be able to help you through retirement. We're also here to help you and your family throughout retirement. Some people say, oh, I didn't know that we can work with your mom, your dad, your family members as well, and help them fully prepare for their retirement as well. So please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to educate, organize, and prepare you for retirement. If for some reason you need to reach us, please reach out to us. We have the phone number here, the 312-499-8888. You can also reach us at fpec@infomaf.com. We thank you for your time, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.